There is a part of me that hopes that the creative team behind this movie pitched it to the studio in the same way that James Cameron pitched Aliens to Fox. Basically, they just write the name of the first movie on a whiteboard, add an S at the end, and then a $sign right down the middle. If it was revealed that that's how they pitched Twisters, that would make me so happy. Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Twisters, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and is a standalone sequel to the 1996 disaster movie Twister. And by that, I mean it's not a continuation from that first movie. None of the characters from that first movie come back, so you could just watch this as its own thing. The movie follows a young woman named Kate, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, who used to be a storm chaser, and she was enthusiastic as hell about seeing tornadoes and trying to figure out how they work. Unfortunately, she encounters a horrific incident that has changed her life, and thus she has moved to New York City to try to live a more peaceful life. I mean, New York isn't exactly a quiet place, but you get the point. She wants nothing to do with tornadoes and wants to stay as far from them as possible. One of her old friends that she used to storm chase with recruits her for a project that could possibly help people who are in the path of deadly tornadoes. However, she soon crossed paths with a popular YouTuber who is big on storm chasing, played by Glen Powell, and the movie is basically her rediscovering her love of chasing tornadoes. So the original movie came out in 1996. At that time, I was about 5 years old, so I clearly didn't see it when it came out in theaters, but my very first exposure to that movie was actually the classic Universal Studios Florida ride, Twister Ride It Out. I really do enjoy that attraction, I love it, and I'm not the biggest fan of what ended up replacing it, especially having gone on the Jimmy Fallon ride myself for the first time last year. But you know, that's all in the past. It was my first exposure to the movie in the same way T2 3D was my first exposure to Terminator, Back to the Future the Ride was my first exposure to that film series, and Star Tours was my first exposure to Star Wars. So I didn't get around to seeing Twister until 3 years ago when a friend of mine was holding an outdoor movie night, and Twister was the movie playing. And I found it to be really fun. I heard a lot of bad things about it going into it, and I watched it going, this is fine. It's a very well-made disaster movie with charismatic actors, even though Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt hated each other's guts. They made the movie very much worth it. Philip Seymour Hoffman is fun. I feel like this is a movie that I should do a full review of at some point. I don't know when, but I enjoyed Twister enough, and it's certainly better than a lot of other disaster movies that were coming out at the time. So when they announced they were making a sequel 28 years later, I thought to myself, why? I mean, Helen Hunt's not back in this movie. Bill Paxton passed away in 2017, so obviously he's not here. I just didn't really understand why we needed a sequel to Twister, considering that none of the original actors are back, and it's very much a standalone film. Now, that was what I thought when I first heard of the movie. Having now seen it for myself, it very much feels like the Top Gun Maverick to Twister's Top Gun. Not to the same extent as Top Gun Maverick, which was my favorite movie the year it came out, but in a way where, yeah, for a sequel that I didn't think needed to happen, especially 28 years distant from the original, it warrants its existence. It's a really fun movie, and because none of the original characters are back, you don't need to see the original movie to really enjoy it. The original movie definitely had a 90s feel about it. It was that classic 90s blockbuster that wasn't on par with something like Jurassic Park, but it was definitely enjoyable. Something more like a better version of Independence Day, where it's a disaster movie that doesn't really go overboard with goofiness and comedy. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's pretty much there and does what it needs to do in under 2 hours, which I really appreciate. However, this movie has several aspects that I think make it superior to the first movie. The first is that the characters are a lot better. Daisy Edgar-Jones is really good in this movie. She's more well known for Normal People, the miniseries that got her a Golden Globe Award, and this is her big blockbuster debut. As Katie Cooper, she's a character that feels very relatable in the sense that she has this really intense passion that's suddenly squandered, and throughout the entire movie, she is basically regaining that passion. And it results in a very fun character arc. We get to see her progress through the movie and see how she's able to overcome this horrific tragedy that pretty much defined her character once the movie actually kicks into gear. She's good, and she also has really good chemistry with Glen Powell, who really is becoming one of these actors where I'm like, this guy's awesome, but I hate him because I want to be him. Like, he is just oozing with charisma, and he's a lot of fun. When he first shows up in the movie, we think of him as just this complete scumbag who's just so full of himself and just cocky as hell. I mean, like I said when I reviewed Top Gun Maverick, he kind of has some Tom Cruise mentalities about him, minus the crazy Scientology stuff. But as the movie goes on, we get to know more about this character and realize that he's not really just a thrill seeker for the sake of thrill seeking. He's actually a pretty smart guy who also has a love for chasing tornadoes. It's just he expresses it in a different way. Like I said, these two actors have fantastic chemistry with each other. It results in a fun will they or won't they relationship. And I hope that the two of them actually got along more than Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt did in the first movie. Because their chemistry is just great. Anthony Ramos is also in this movie playing one of Katie's old colleagues who recruits her back for a company he works with, and he has a really good arc of his own because he was involved with the incident that left Katie emotionally traumatized. He's not just there as a third wheel, and he's really good in the role as well. The score of the movie is also very noteworthy. There are actually a lot of points in this movie where I was reminded of the score from Interstellar. Not surprising considering that this is Benjamin Wallfisch, who has collaborated with Hans Zimmer on Blade Runner 2049 and Dunkirk. But the score really did stick out to me, and I thought, this is better than it has any right to be. I wouldn't think that a movie about tornadoes tearing up cities and small towns would have a score this powerful. And speaking of the tornadoes, the action scenes involving them are very tense. Sometimes they're a little shoddy in terms of cinematography and the filming, but most of the time you get a really clear sense of how massive and destructive the tornadoes are. And you get to see the damage that they really inflict, much like with the first film. And to this movie's credit, I don't think it jumped the shark as much as the first Twister did, which that first movie didn't really jump the shark a lot, but that ending sequence was like, okay, that's ridiculous. This movie feels a little more grounded and not 100% believable, but it's definitely not absurd to the point where it makes the dangers of tornadoes a mockery. The only major issue I have with this movie, outside of some shoddy action scenes, is that it didn't leave an emotional impact on me in the same way Top Gun Maverick did. Again, not to compare these two movies, but I didn't walk out of Twisters thinking, wow, that movie was far better, like no question better than the original. I just thought, yeah, this is a superior movie to the original, but I'm not in love with that. I found it to be as enjoyable as that first movie, but there are elements about it overall that make it better, I think. The characters are more defined, they're more fleshed out. The side characters are also a lot of fun. The characters that are part of Tyler Owen's Storm Chaser crew, they're a lot of fun, and there's a little more to them than you would expect based on a first impression. So overall, the more time I've had to sit on this movie since I saw it, the more I found myself liking it. So I will say worth seeing in your lifetime. This is one of those movies where if you're not a huge fan of disaster movies, you won't fall in love with it, but you'll walk out of it going, yeah, that was actually better than I imagined it to be. I don't see this movie being as big a hit as Top Gun Maverick because I don't think anybody anticipated this to be a billion-dollar hit, but I do hope it's financially successful because it's really good, really entertaining, but also I don't want this joke that I made at the beginning of the video to be irrelevant. So I hope you guys go see Twister because It's a lot of fun. And there you go, that's my review for Twisters. I hope you enjoyed it. And before I go, two things. First of all, later this day at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be hosting a live watch party for the American version of King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1963. I've been doing live watch parties all summer for the noteworthy Americanized versions of Godzilla movies, and this means next month I'll be ending with Godzilla 1985. But later this evening, King Kong vs. Godzilla, the American cut. Go check it out and join me in that live stream. I also want to take the time to thank my YouTube members right over here. If you want to help support the channel even more and get access to exclusive perks that nobody else gets, you can join the YouTube membership for as little as $1.99 a month. And not only do you get early access to all of my videos a day before they're released to the public, but starting next week, I'll be putting up a monthly series of member-only videos. And also, you get your name listed in the credits right here, so definitely consider joining YouTube memberships. And until next time, I want to know what you guys think about Twisters. Whatever your opinions are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. If you want to find me elsewhere on the internet, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and my theme park and travel channel right here on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.